Hello guys, I'm Collins Ndeliku, a Nigerian debater and public speaker, and I'm so excited to be part of the Kujenga Umoja public speaking tournament, and particularly excited for this series of training videos that will be dishing out to you guys. So I'm just going to be listing out a couple of tips to help you in your that would help you in your public speaking career, irrespective of your level of expertise. If you're a novice speaker, an intermediate or advanced speaker, this will help you either directly or help someone else. So it'll be lovely if you stay tuned to the end. This particular video wouldn't be exhaustive, so it isn't going to cover every single thing. I'm just going to give, I think 5-6 tips that would help you in your public speaking journey. The first I want to start with is a very simple question. You have to ask yourself something very simple, and that is why. Every single endeavor you do in life, even beyond public speaking, this question is important. It's like, why am I doing this? What is the goal that I'm driving towards? What do I want to achieve with public speaking? Am I just doing it because it's fun, which isn't bad, or am I doing it because I want to voice my opinions and I want to express myself creatively? It doesn't matter what your reason for doing it is. You may probably be doing it because you see your friends doing it, but you have to have that reason at the back of your mind, or probably physically penned down somewhere. The reason why this is important for me particularly, it's important so that when I face hurdles, and of course you definitely will face hurdles, when you face hurdles, you remind yourself why you began the journey in the first place. Hurdles like maybe not breaking in a public speaking tournament, or making it to finals back to back and not winning, or something like that. So when you face hurdles, you have to remind yourself, why am I doing public speaking? Why did I begin in the first place? And it's important to have that in the back of your mind. The second thing I want to talk about is practice and preparation for public speaking tournaments, and practice that would really help you grow, because that's what you need in anything you do, any sport, any endeavor. You need to practice, you need to prepare. And before tournaments, there's several ways to do this. The first is of course through consuming quality content, the kind of public speaking videos you watch, the kind of materials you read, and the kind of news you also watch too as well. A lot of things that you could consume that helps you. And it's important to read a variety of topics, because you could get prompts in public speaking tournaments that you're not so familiar with. You may not like sports, you may not like politics, but it's important to get well versed in these particular sectors or in these particular areas to even boost your creativity and boost how flexible you can be if you meet certain topics or prompts that you're not so used to or you're not so conversant with. It's important to try that out. So as much as possible, try to ensure that you're watching very good videos of great speakers and that you're also reading very good content to sort of boost your creative ability and creative prowess. So another thing I want to talk about is, in terms of preparation and practice, is of course quelling some of your shortfalls or from some of your flaws. Some of you might still have some level of stage fright, and it's completely normal even for expert speakers, because the thing with debate and public speaking is that with more rounds or with more tournaments, the stake gets higher. So the cliche saying, the higher you go, the harder the fall. So if you're in the first round, it's mostly relaxed, maybe it's a prepared speech, and the more you go, the chances of you breaking gets even more contingent on how good you are in those particular rounds. So some people might still develop stage frights even though they're like experts in public speaking. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. What matters is how you handle this. And a couple of tips, some of them might be generic, but I just hope you apply them and it works for you. So deep breathing, of course, is something that happens at the moment where you feel the stage fright begin to happen. Maybe before a round, maybe you made it to the finals and you begin to feel anxious. Just calm down and take deep breath. But one thing to note that really quells stage fright even before all of this is to prepare and practice ahead of time. Don't shy away from public speaking opportunities, be it in a workplace, be it in class. Try to make sure that you're in front of people and you're speaking and you're confronting the fear. Exposure therapy 101. Ensure that you're confronting the fear. But in that scenario where you're there, deep breathing helps. Secondly, try as much as possible to pick one person in the crowd. If you're scared of approaching people in a physical tournament, for instance, pick someone in the crowd and just focus on and look at that person and speak to them directly. I mean, this isn't necessarily what I do all the time, but most of the time when I feel like people are too much, I pick one particular person or a group of people probably in the front, and I speak to them to reduce that little bit of tension or that anxiety that I may face. There are a couple more tips to talk about regarding this, but I think this helps. And again, I just want to stress on practice and preparation ahead of time. The next thing I want to talk about is entering the tournament proper, because the tournaments like Kujenga Umoja, you're definitely going to meet top quality speakers, that I've also been practicing as well. One thing you need to note is you first of all have to have expectations. So you need to go into tournaments with expectations. What do I want to get out of this? Don't just register for tournaments because of the fact that you just want to register. What do I want to get out of this? If it's for fun, that's also a good reason. But it's also important to grow as well. So what do I want to get out of this? How do I see my average? What's my average public going to look like? It may seem cliche because some people say, oh, if you have high expectations, you get disappointed. It doesn't matter. Have expectations regardless. But secondly, you also need to know what is expected of you in that particular tournament. And in this regard, I'm going to be talking about a couple of things to expect in some public speaking tournaments. A lot of you are familiar with this, but I just want to brush over two particular things that would be that might be some challenging to some new speakers. And the first is the kind of speeches you may encounter. In most round ones come with a prepared speech, so you have to have a speech you've probably said somewhere before. It may not be yours particularly, but you have to own it. It has to be something that is appealing to you, something that is important to you, something that is very critical to you. But then we also have impromptu speeches. It's almost like a few seconds and you have to start speaking, and they just give you a topic. So there's a topic attached to a number, and they just say, oh, pick a number. You could pick like number 10 or number 12, and they give you a topic like redder than red flag or mother sins, which is the topic I got in NYDC finals. So I don't know how I got this idea in that particular final, but I just got mother sins, and I don't know when I just put my hand in my eye. And I began to talk about how people have always wondered what was wrong with my eye and how I got blind on one eye. They look at me with their two healthy ones and begin to ask questions. And then I began to tell a story of how when I was little, my mother used to maltreat our housemaid. And at the point she got so tired of the maltreatment, and one day she got so enraged and she started beating my mother up, and my mother was holding me, and as she was hitting my mother, she didn't care what she was hitting because she was so angry, and she hit me in the process, and that damaged my eye, and it's kind of my mother's fault. I don't know how the idea came to be, but it's just one of those things that happen in impromptu speeches where spontaneously you have to be creative. One thing that helps, and I have to say, I know it's cliche, but I have to keep repeating it, is practice. To get better in impromptu speeches, you do not wait to enter a tournament before you get better at it or get creative. You have to practice this. Practice delivering speeches on a variety of topics immediately with very little time to prep. That's something that's going to help you. But another thing that's going to help you is to, first of all, reach to that residual knowledge. Remember one thing I said about preparation is you've probably read a lot of articles, read a lot of stories, probably watched some very good movies that will help you in your creative process as well. But you have to reach to that archive and bring out something that is particular to you, something that's interesting to you, something that is emotional and moving that you can relate to, that would help you in that particular process. It doesn't have to be a perfect speech, but if it's something that is emotional, I'm pretty certain the judges will also be able to relate to it as well. The next thing I want to talk about is scenario-based speeches. So scenario-based speeches require you to switch up, require a change of perspective. It could be a hypothetical situation that's just been created by the CAP team, or it could be a real world scenario that has happened, but it all requires you to be in the stead or put yourself in the shoes of a particular actor. So it either demands that you speak in their stead, or you act, or you say certain things. So an example of a scenario-based speech was the one we got in NYDC, where there was a local village where mothers were losing their children because a drug was not properly packaged. And the scenario we were given is that we were supposed to be health workers from the Ministry of Health that went to that village to convince the mothers to trust the government again. So that was an example of a scenario-based speech. A couple of people got creative with that. Another example is at KDU, where we were animals and I was Leo the lion, and my job was to sort of attend or address certain issues in that particular jungle where there was drought and where there was famine and a couple of animals were fighting. So my job was to address the issues. I think I tried to roar at some point. There's a picture of me doing that. It was funny, but it was also a very good and creative round. A lot of people also did marvelously in that particular round as well. So it's very important to note that even though you may not have as much time to also prep, it could be 1 minute, 2 minutes, within that limited time, it's important to scribble down what you intend to, message you intend to convey, how you intend to portray that character. It's important to also note structure, introduction, body, and conclusion. That's important. I mean, the studies that show that our brains relates more with the story once it has that structure. I think I might have highlighted this earlier. So it's very, very important to have that structure, but you have to write out some characteristics of the character or the actor you're portraying. So like in the lion example, for instance, how do I want to portray this lion? Do I want to roar? Do I want to show that the lion is assertive? What can I show about this character? What unique thing can I add? But the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, engaging your audience. This is so important. There's so much to know here that even a short video like this cannot cover. But I just want to talk about a few things. First of all, know your audience. It's important to know your audience. It's important to know who you're speaking to, the kind of judges you have. It's important to also be very sensitive. When you see that you're in a space where there's diverse people, you also have to be very respectful with some of the words you say, and so you're not insulting someone, insulting a person, someone's gender, or insulting someone's race or ethnicity. That is important as well. I just had to mention that. But also, it's important to ensure that you convey your words, follow it up with some emotional response. It's not good for you to be just robotic and just giving your speeches. No, you have to ensure, like, people that are watching you and people that are judging you as well are human beings. You also have to ensure that you spur up their emotions with your speech. Make sure you're careful with your selection of words. I mean, you may not have that much time to prep, but like I said, practice is what helps you to gain mastery in how you use your words and how you convey emotions. Use body language as much as possible. Vocal variety is also key. How do you enunciate your words? If you're trying to be emotional, you're trying to pass a different point across, you have to, don't be static, don't be stagnant, don't be a robot, like I said earlier. You have to try to ensure that you embrace this variety and embrace that flexibility in your speech as well. The next thing I want to talk about is about critically analyzing yourself. I think to improve, it's very necessary that even within tournaments, even within rounds, like probably after the rounds, it's important that you critically analyze yourself. How did I do in this round? As much as possible, also scrutinize your style, because style is also very important. Are you the speaker that tilts towards being emotional, maybe a little bit dramatic, or are you the speaker that is more calm? It's also important to note that your style varies too, depending on the prompt or the scenario you're given. So if you are supposed to play an emotional actor, that's not the time to be robotic or the time to be calm. So your style varies per round, per prompt, and even per tournament, because some tournaments have certain themes you kind of have to ascribe to. You have to ensure that your speech follows or toes the line of that particular team. So it's something you have to critically analyze from time to time, something that you have to try to make sure it evolves so you don't remain stagnant or one particular style that just gets too monotonous to certain judges. You have to see how, even if it means you emulating certain speakers, incorporate that into your style as well. But it's important to remain truly you. That's how you maintain your uniqueness, and that's how you stand out. The next thing I want to talk about is harnessing the feedback mechanism, harnessing proper feedback mechanisms, because beyond analyzing yourself, you may not be the most objective party to ascertain how good you are or how bad you may be in certain instances. So it's important to harness feedback mechanisms, of course, and I advise every speaker to ask for feedback in public speaking, even in rounds where you thought you did so great at, even in tournaments where you win, and especially when you lose too. But it's important to get feedback. I beg of you, make it part of your growth. Make it a part of you to always ask for feedback, no matter how well you think you did in a round. Ask for feedback from the different judges in the panel. Some may have thought your speech was so great, and some may have not been so wowed. So it's important to get feedback from these particular people and try to incorporate that to how you progress and your analysis of yourself as well. Another thing I want to say, and this is very important, is if you're not in a debate society or public speaking society, please try to be part of one. But if you're in a society that doesn't take public speaking so serious, because that's a problem these days, ensure that you also join an online community where you have friends and people who also have some of these similar struggles and are also trying to improve, and you can improve with them as well. It makes everything so much easier. If you can get a mentor, you can speak to someone who is interested in mentoring you. That's also something that works as well. So you need people, you need community to be able to develop properly. I think that's something that also helps and bolsters your personal actions to even grow and improve as well. This is not exhaustive, but please remember these 6 things. The first is to ask yourself the simple question, and that is why? Why am I doing this? The second is to remember to prepare and practice. It helps you in every single aspect of your growth as a public speaker. The third is entering tournaments. You need to know how tournaments work, like what is expected of you, and how you're going to be able to get the best out of those tournaments you engage in. The third is the fourth actually is engaging your audience. Know your audience, know what is expected of you per round. Then the fifth thing to note is, of course, critically analyzing yourself, and the last is harnessing feedback. I hope these tips are able to help you in some way or the other, or help you help someone else. Like I said, they're not exhaustive, and you're probably going to get more training videos before Ikeja Umoja begins. I'm wishing you the best in this tournament. If it's your first tournament, please go in and have a blast, have so much fun. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see the most exciting speeches. All the best, guys.